Hi, this is Jay Hummel. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Excited to have a friend of the show on today, Dana Cornell, CEO and founder of Cornell Capital. Dana, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, buddy. Glad to be
Man,
here.
we've been trying a long time. We've
About it.
been
We
trying
made
a
it.
long time. Our schedules have never worked, so I'm excited you're on. So, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about you and what you're up to at Cornell Capital?
Yeah. Yeah. So, background 20-ish plus years in traditional wealth management, came out of the wirehouse world, founded Cornell Capital Holdings, which, I'd really say it, when I left the wirehouse, I ended up in the advanced planning division there. Spun out and just realized people weren't getting the advice that we were giving in that subset of the firm I came from. So Cornell Capital is a planning firm first. So we don't just manage money. If I had to kind of summarize what we do, we're developing the architecture, building an operating system that families that probably are accelerating towards that could build into a family office, a true family office structure, but aren't quite there yet. But are ascending to that and just don't have access to the right advisors or don't know where to even begin. So we're building that architecture, building that operating system, and coming in as essentially the family CFO, as I like to explain it to people, to own the one outcome and coordinate all of the advice, coordinate all of the implementation of that for the families we work with.
As you know, my day job, I spend a lot of time with advisors. So many people tell me they want to grow, but so few do. Why do you think advisors don't grow organically as much as they could?
There's two sides of the coin. One, the system is built, and I drank that Kool-Aid for a long time. The firm, depending on where you're at, especially the world I came from, I was taught, hey, this is hard. Don't worry about it. We've got it. You go out, go find new clients, plug it into the model. Well, the model is the same thing, right? So you're telling the same story as the guy next to you, trying to be different. So it comes down to who do you like and trust more from a client's point of view. That's why I left. I couldn't do that anymore. And at the end of the day, you're really not delivering any customized advice or not much.
We're not going to use the name, but Dana came out of a wirehouse, a more captive environment to start Cornell Capital as an independent firm. How do you think about how you spend your time? What percentage of your time is spent out dealing with new relationships, building new relationships? Hopefully, those relationships obviously become clients of your firm versus serving current clients or dealing with trying to quote unquote run the firm.
A lot of time was spent for us on the front end. So you have to develop the marketing message and the systems that's the funnel, right? But if you have that funnel and people think leads are an issue or amount of prospects are an issue, for us, it's the opposite. If you can get that right on the front end, without sounding boastful, that's my biggest problem in the fact that I don't have the capacity to implement, as we've talked, the amount of people coming in the front door, right? So I have to purposely split my time right now 50-50 of implementation to front end acquisition of new clients. If I had more help implementing, I prefer to be on the front end, right? I like developing new relationships, solving problems, figuring out how I can help these people get from where they're at to where they want to go. But that starts because I did the work on the front end to develop a different message, a different marketing funnel, a different system to bring these people in.
The problem isn't close rate for most advisors. The problem isn't onboarding for most clients. You're the reverse, right? The reverse triangle, and the way I always think about it, reverse pyramid, however you want to define it,
Mhm.
is how are you finding the ability to fill the funnel and ultimately have the problem of optimizing the onboarding?
Yeah, it's funny. So when I don't, in my model, I'm not replacing advisors necessarily. So if that client likes his money manager, we stick with it. Oftentimes what's happening is that guy that used to be me, a more traditional advisor, is calling me going, how did you get to my client? How did you do this? Can we partner? Can I learn from you? The reality is, to answer your question, all I did quite simply was actually listen to my clients, but I built this off my frustrations as an advisor. The things that I couldn't market for, the things I couldn't do were the things my clients were asking me for. So the marketing is built from my frustrations of where I couldn't fill gaps for my clients. couldn't help them with tax problems in their current annual income or capital gains mitigation. So I went out and found a solution, and I speak to that. So if that pain is out there and they're feeling that in the moment, right, I'm meeting that client where they're at in the moment versus I'm not talking about a 30-year retirement plan. I'm not talking about your estate planning at some point down the road that's going to be painful. Right? That's real hard to pull those people in from a gravitational pull. I got to find them and meet them where they're at and what's top of mind for them in the moment so they can raise their hand and go, that guy's talking to me.
Now, are you doing that digitally? Are you finding them mostly in person? What's the balance there?
Combination of both, but honestly, mostly digitally, right? So I embrace social media. And when I left the wirehouse, we couldn't do any of that, right? Compliance is a real thing and we take it very seriously still, but you can do compliance the right way. I just knew if I could get a message that was the market match, like I just talked, out the right way to enough people, I needed such a small percentage to raise their hand and respond. It'd be such a large influx for me relative to what we were used to.
There's a lot of people that would hit you on the business model, right? And I'm making a step forward because I know your firm well. Is a lot of people would say, okay, one of the benefits of running a RIA firm is being, basis point driven. It's great when the market goes up, terrible when the market goes down, but in the end, the market goes up over history way more times than it goes down. So operating leverage goes to the side of the advisor. Trying to stay away from fixed fee planning, can't charge enough, can't scale it. You have a different view on that, at least now, in the way that you've built a lot of what Cornell Capital is doing. So maybe just walk them through the conversations that you and I have had on that issue.
Yeah, so I'm kind of skating to where the puck's going, so to speak, as far as a fee model. I came from all AUM. I did no planning fees in my previous world. I'm dealing with a higher net worth client who's used to paying a fee for value. So that really became it was an issue for me when I couldn't articulate the value I provided. Easier to charge an AUM fee when it's taken out quarterly or monthly, and it's, you sign the documents and it's 1% or whatever it is, and they don't really see it because they don't check their statement, and it's quite honestly it's buried in their statement. And let's be honest, they don't know where to look at for it anyways, in all reality. But I'm showing them, and if you're proactive enough and you can add enough value in enough ways, and then you can stack tax mitigation, investment advisory work, coordination of advisors, advising on their business, which is usually my client's biggest asset that I couldn't really advise on before. And you start to stack the value in all these lanes, and I can articulate that for them now. What I'm giving them, the multiple of value relative to the fee they're paying, compared, and I contrast and compare it to a traditional AUM model. It's not even close, right? So yeah, there's an initial.
Well, and you've found a hybrid, if I
Yeah,
remember right. So
yeah.
well, I think there's two caveats to this, which I think is really important because sometimes people watch these shows and they're like, oh, Hummel's for planning fees. That's not what I believe across the entire
No, we
landscape.
do both.
You're
We do.
dealing with higher end clients,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where I'm seeing that a lot in the family office space. But you also are charging AUM fees if they want you to implement the
Mm-hmm.
investment management of the recommendations you make. Or they can go execute that with a different advisor, money manager, go figure out how to do it on their own through, Schwab Intelligent Portfolio or however that makes sense. So you really don't have a fixed fee model. You have a hybrid model in the way that I look at it. Am I
100% do.
articulating that properly?
Yeah,
Because I just
100%.
I don't see how you do that with a $2 million client.
You typically don't.
Yeah,
You just
I
don't.
don't how you'd ever scale it. So I think that's a huge for the listeners. I think that's a big difference. Is your client base is very different than a normal high net worth retail customer, with $2 to $3 million.
I'll give you an example from today. Right, new client signed up. And outside looking in, you would probably go, that guy's never going to pay the planning fee plus, and our AUM fee is lower by design, right? Because it's not egregious in what we're charging these people, right? It averages out to probably a normal all-in AUM fee. but I'm very clear on you're paying me for my strategy, my expertise, my knowledge base in protecting your financial operating system. And then if you want my access to implementation on the investment advisory side, I'm going to do it for you cheaper, faster, better. And the reality was, I didn't do that before, as you know. Most people were just coming back going, you designed the plan anyways. Why don't you just implement? I also didn't want to fight with people who have a great relationship with their advisor. And if they can do it and they wanted them to do it, I wasn't going to turn away a planning fee to do that. Right. Client today, younger guy, only has about 2 million bucks. So surface level, you might think he didn't fit the model, but he's about to sell his business for 12 million. So the pre-planning for him to save the tax planning, the income replacement, everything he needs to do to prep that business to maximize the valuation prior to sale, preserve tax, replace income, structure that, get the right advisors around him. The guy doesn't even have a CPA or an attorney to prep the business to sell, but he's fielding offers already. He's about to accept one. That guy, the value for him is, exponential, right?
Yeah,
So it's
I think that's
situational is what I'm trying to say, but that guy's walking into a different level of wealth, right? And he's on the lower side of that, but for him, it works.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. Well, this leads to my last question that I wanted to ask you, and I think it's a good segue given what you just talked about and how you think about it. Is I love having smart guests who sit in the seat, especially advisors like you who sit in the seat doing this every day. I mean, we're going to get tired of hearing about AI. You can't escape it. You can't escape the questions. The number of calls I get on how AI is going to impact the financial advisor in the space. If I had $1 for every call I get, I wouldn't be on this podcast with you.
Yeah, right.
You'd have to find me somewhere. But what's the role of the advisor in the way you think about it 5 years from now?
Yeah. Well, first, I'd say if you're not embracing and understanding AI, you're going to get crushed as a general statement. But what it does, tech in general, AI especially, it negates the need for basic planning, portfolio construction, reporting, all of the things. If you're doing the basic blocking and tackling as an advisor, what that would have got you paid, and today probably still does, but especially 10, 15 years ago was the core of most people's businesses in the world I came from, it's going to be obsolete. Right. That's why I moved purposely from a pure AUM model to a hybrid. What's harder to replace is decision making, coordination, owning outcomes, right? Experience and judgment. Real hard for AI to implement that type of stuff, but AI assisting with that in real life, that's a pretty lethal combination, and people with wealth will pay for that all day long.
I agree. I think we're now it's a much bigger, broader, faster conversation. But to me, it's no different than 15, 16 when the robo-advisor movement was happening. And what ended up happening was the robo-advisor movement changed the client experience and it made the advisor more efficient. And that's exactly what we're going to do now. It's on steroids because it's bigger and it's faster and it's going to disrupt a lot of people more rapidly than 15 and 16. But I think not understanding that that's where we likely are going to end up, I think is a bad way to think about where the puck's going.
That's for sure.
Well, Dana, how do people find you? I mean, I know you're looking to affiliate with advisors who might need your services again as you
Yeah.
look at growing. Your lead count is higher than what you can possibly handle. So you're thinking about affiliate models and different things that you're
Yeah.
going to do. So if somebody wants to do business with you or wants to learn from you, how do they find you and get in touch?
Yeah, I appreciate that. CornellCapitalHoldings.com, Dana at CornellCapitalHoldings.com. I'm pretty easy to find. You Google my name and I'll be there. So
Or you can find us in Nashville in April when we're at the John Daly Celebrity Golf Outing, charity golf outing. So that's the
pretty
next time I'll
visible.
see you.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on, man, and I hope you'll come on again in the future. And I
anytime,
look
buddy.
forward to seeing you in a month in Nashville.
Thanks for having me, man. It's a
All right,
pleasure.
thanks, buddy. All right, we'll see you next time on the deep dive.